What's up guys, big welcome to you all to our channel. We are Team Crushing the Meta, and today you are here with Faklis, here to share with you guys the latest reveal for Clan Collection Volume 2. It is actually the last one, and then we depart ways with this set, at least for the Japanese reveals, which is for Dimension Police. I'm very excited to share with you guys, so we can just jump right into it. So the Dimension Police card we get is Zeal. It is an old card back in the Limit Break era, which was a right chain. We already know what it was, but the skill is as follows. It has two skills: Auto on V and R. When placed from hand, look at the top card from your deck and call it to rearguard circle. This is essentially just a plus, so that's not bad. Although it is random, you can get your triggers out of the top deck, which is not the best, but we'll take what we can get. And the second skill, and also if it's placed on V, you can choose your opponent's Vanguard and reduces its power by 5,000 for each marker they have. What this means is, if you're facing against something that accelerates marker generation, like for example Luard or Gear Chronicle or Narukami with Vanquisher, you can essentially just really lower their power to a point that it reaches the negatives. Unfortunately, also what this means, going first on Zeal is not the best. Yes, you still get the free call, but you don't really reduce their power because obviously they don't have a marker. But of course, if they're fighting against like Genesis, for example, with Astral Poet, then you can still get the full effect on the first turn 3 if you're going first. So that's really interesting because it also relates back to how Zeal was in the past, which was also about reducing the opponent's Vanguard to a lower power threshold, so you can hit more, they need to guard more. But the second skill is, act on V. Once per turn, you can counterblast one and put one or more rear guards into your soul. Choose one of your opponent's Vanguard, and until the end of turn it gets minus 10,000. And if they are already at grade 3, if you have the Devourer of Planet Zeal, which is the grade 2, which we'll talk about later, in your soul, this unit gets an extra drive for every 2 cards put into your soul for this cost. So this is maybe a bit too long. So what essentially it does is, you counterblast one. If you put only one rear guard in, you just get the minus 10,000. You can do that. But if you put 2, then you get an extra drive if you have the grade 2. If you put 4, you get another extra drive, which means you quad drive. And yeah, the more rear guards you put, the more drive you get that you can get. Of course, it's not Excel, so you can only get plus 2 extra drives by putting 4 rear guards into the soul. So it's not so bad if you go first, because you can still minus the opponent's Vanguard, but you don't get the extra drive. So from this, at least in my opinion, it seems that Zeal would prefer to go second. Or at least you should start with something else, for example like a Bradblack, which I will go into later on. But the grade 2, Devourer of Planet Zeal, so we get the second part of the right chain. Also 2 skills: act on V and R. Once per turn, counterblast 1, rest 2 rear guards. Choose one of your opponent's Vanguard, it gets minus 5,000 until the end of turn. If you have the grade 1, I have Destruction Zeal in your soul, you draw a card. So this is actually very, very handy to have. For example, if you just write it on turn 2, you can just pull off the skill to get an extra draw. For example, if you have the counterblast to spare, you can also rest itself if it is on rear guard, so you don't need to worry, and then maybe replace it with a Zeal, and then call another from the top deck or whatever. Essentially, you get to minus the opponent's Vanguard even further, but also not making sure that you don't minus too much. It has also a second skill, Auto. When rode upon by a grade 3, choose one of your opponent's Vanguard and they get minus 5,000 until the end of turn. This is very handy because it's also generic. Say you decided to play this in die liner for whatever reason, you can write on top of your die liner and get the opponent minus 5,000 without the whole shenanigans of needing to write on Zeal, for example. It's a very nice touch. I do like it. Very flavorful and just interesting when they're on their grade 2. If you go first, you're hitting on a 5,000 Vanguard, and your die liner is hitting for very hard with a lot of crits if you go force 2, for example. So very interesting. I like it a lot. The third one is the grade 1 of Zeal, Eye of Destruction Zeal, as I already mentioned. Only one skill this time. When placed on V and R, check the top 7 for a grade 2 or a grade 3 with Zeal in its card name, put it into your hand and shuffle your deck. It's a hard once per turn, so you have to keep that in mind. If you have multiple copies of this, you have to think about, do you want to search now or do you want to search later? If you keep too much, maybe you won't have enough time to search a lot later on. So placing this on the field on turn 1 or turn 2 is quite free because it gets you something. Hopefully, if you're lucky, check that top 7. So it's just a nice consistency boost. Now, the reprints, because aside from the new cards, we get also reprints of old cards that we already have for Dimension Police. And these are the 4 cards. The first one is Platinum Ace, a grade 2, very nice beat stick, very powerful because of the extra crit and power. Reaching the 30,000 in Zeal is slightly difficult if you're playing Force 2, but it is definitely achievable because of the other guy on the right, which is Twin Order, which I would say the best thing that ever happened to DP V Premium. It's what they really need, because if you don't know its skill already, it's when boost something, it gives the Vanguard 10,000 power for each marker you have. And if you can imagine in the past with Bradblack and Great Dayusha, you can really increase the opponent's your Vanguard to really high power ceilings, reaching the 30k for Platinum Ace, for example. And yeah, you can go even further and helps the Force 2 decision and option when you want to play a Dimension Police. So, and this is a very expensive card even to this day, because it's a promo card that is hard to find, and almost every V Premium build uses Twin Order. I would say maybe every V Premium Dimension Police uses Twin Order. So that is an A+ for Bushi for printing that. I love it a lot. Now the third one is Magical Police Kilt, which it's okay. I would say it can draw you cards by a Counterblast, although Counterblast is a bit difficult in Dimension Police because you don't have counter chargers at all in V Premium. It can give power on place. It's not so bad. It's a triple R, so it's, I would say it's appreciated. And actually, now that I think about it, in Overdress, because we have the Brand Gate, the police is probably in a similar, how would you say, aesthetic to the new Overdress cards for Brand Gate by Tomari. So it's interesting to see how it evolves after 3,000 years, I guess, in Planet Cray lore. Then of course we have the Draw PG, always appreciated. And I would say that's a solid. Everyone has it. Good props for Bushiroad for that. Now, this is an example list that I came up with. Of course, it's not just for me by me alone. I tested this slightly with some of my friends and also with other clan collections. So it's not really the meta testing. I also saw some lists from avid Dimension Police fighters like Different Fight, as well as the Dimension Police Facebook group. Facebook group. And this is what I came up with. So it's a Zeal Bradblack list with Dieliner. So if you go first, Dieliner is still quite strong. I was a bit torn between playing Dieliner or Great Dayusha, because you can, with Great Dayusha, you can have that twin drive, maybe superior right if you have the Twin Order to reach the power threshold, or you can ride it just off Bradblack to get the front row more power. So I would say it's a preference thing, but ultimately, if you really want to have a strong grade 3 going first, then you should definitely play Dieliner. Bradblack is obvious, and with Zeal, it's actually very interesting because you can do multi-attacks now. Because if you attack with Bradblack, at the end of battle, you can ride your Zeal, and then the Zeal can superior call something from the top deck. So the attack pattern with Bradblack and Zeal is usually on Bradblack turn, attack with a rear guard, attack with Bradblack, superior ride Zeal from your hand, and then with Zeal, check the top deck, call a card to the rearguard that already attacked. So you have 5 attacks. Although the power is maybe not that great, but you have to keep in mind the opponent's Vanguard power is being reduced. So they sort of like a power boost to the front row in a way, which is very much appreciated because you can still proc Zeal skill on superior riding from Bradblack. Then the grade 2s, I play obviously the 4 grade 2 Zeals, no explanations needed there. Platinum Ace is a good choice just for the extra crit pressure and power. You can also play something like Die Dragon if you want to have more power to the Vanguard by Soul Blasting 1 and give it 5000. You can also play Die Dumper because if you think about it, Die Dumper on attack plus 10,000 and then it retires itself. You superior ride Zeal and then you call that to you call something from the top deck to that empty rearguard circle anyway, so it's you don't really minus that much. You could also play Active Mask, although it's a Control Blast issue again that you have to stabilize yourself. But it can give some multi-attacking potential, so you can attack with your Active Mask, attack with your grade 3 Bradblack for example, and then stand it now or maybe later on after you superior ride. And it's very effective, especially with the reduction in power that the opponent's Vanguard is having to deal with. Keep in mind, you can also stack the reduction of power with the grade 3 Zeal on place and the grade 2 Zeal on the main phase by resting 2 rearguard, so you can really increase your offensive turns quite well in a different way, which you don't power yourself, but you reduce the power of the opponent. Twin Order is obvious. It helps for the Force 2 plays, or maybe if you want to go very high above and beyond with power with Force 1, always helps, I would say. And then the Grade 1 Zeal is obvious. And the 5 cards left are, for me, I decided to play Dice Cooper because the comparison for me was between Dice Cooper and the Grand Hope for the Grade 3 Searcher for Dimension Police. And the reason why I like Dice Cooper is because I don't want to minus from the Grade T Searcher because you have to discard 1 card. Technically, it's okay because you still get your Grade 3 out of your deck, but you can also argue that you want your Grade 3 out of the deck by the effects of Bradblack and or Die Liner so that you don't minus. So this is, I would say, a personal pick because then you have more right targets aside from the Grade 1 Zeal. And also you have the unplace giving the power to the Vanguard, always handy. If you get it from the top deck, then you also give 5000 power on your Bradblack and Zeal turn, which is pretty neat, I would say. And then I have Go Biker here, which can on-place threats itself, plus 10,000 to the Vanguard, and if they're grade 3, you can stand itself as well. Just a nice power boost, and it can also be rested by something like the grade 2 Zeal after you place it. Also, if you call it from the top deck, it still triggers as well. More power to the Vanguard is especially appreciated when you are attacking for low with just a single drive after you Bradblack and you don't have Twin Order. I would say you can easily change the 5 here that the Go Biker and the Dice Cooper with the grade 3 Searcher and or Die Brave, which is also nice because it can power the Vanguard but also give you more soul and to draw. And for example, if you rest it with a grade 2, you can still use the effect, the on-hit pressure of Die Brave, for example. So it's really up to you. I play 6 draws for the trigger lineup with 6 crits with 4 draw PGs because I feel like you sometimes don't have the hand for the defense. But also when you need to discard with Bradblack, mentally for me it's much nicer to discard like a draw trigger, like a normal draw trigger, just so that you don't minus a lot of shield or you lose a lot of pieces. So this is my reasoning for playing 6 draws. You can technically also play more crits for the pressure, maybe then making Force 1 more viable. But I would say it's a preference. I would really give the deck a shot, test it out with your friends, with clan collection cards, because they are very fun just to play around with. and if you're confident, play it with meta decks. Essentially, I would say Zeal doesn't necessarily bring DP to top tier status, but it does give the deck more things to play with. This is just an example of Zeal with Bradblack. You can technically play Zeal, Bradblack, and also Great Ayusha, or with Gallop, because then the Gallop has slightly more pressure. It's hard to argue. You can also play it with Miracle Beauty, because you just do multiple attacks with opponent's Vanguard at a lower power. So go crazy with it, experiment. I will definitely experiment more on this, as well as in the premium side. Still something to explore, and I really like what Clan Collection does for not just Dimension Police in that aspect, but also for all the other clans, especially the ones that I main, such as Grand Blue and Aqua Force. But that is all for me today. Hope you find the video interesting. Thank you for tuning in to Crushing the Meta. Next time, hopefully we'll have more news, and we'll see you guys later. Fuckless out.